Hello, and welcome to my discussion of collection policies and self-censorship. So, there are many reasons to have a collection policy in place in the library. In Chapter 5 of the Collection Program in Schools, Martis outlines reasons that schools should develop collection policies. And in my opinion, here are the three most important. First, to acknowledge the rights to and I think most especially procedures for reconsideration of materials. I actually combined two of the reasons in the Martis text here. I think that, especially in our current political climate, the number one reason to have a clear collection policy is to not only establish space for, but more importantly, procedures for book challenges. Having a procedure in place means that each reconsideration request gets equal treatment, which lends credibility to the process and leaves out any room for biased decisions or knee jerk reactions when books are challenged. Second, including an established mission statement outlining your school library's goals and purpose and a clear evaluation strategy in your policy will help the school librarian to be sure that they are selecting the best materials for their communities. We all have personal biases, again, and our own favorite genres and resources, but we need to consistently return to our mission statement and evaluate our collection to make sure that we are providing quality materials for all stakeholders. And finally, another significant reason to develop a collection policy is to ensure a degree of consistency. I currently teach in a large district with 12 high schools, and I don't even know how many middle and elementary schools. And having a district wide collection policy ensures that all students in the district, no matter what part of town they come from or what background they come from, have similar resources available to them in their school library. Of course, each librarian works independently to select books for their campus, but with a common mission statement, all librarians are ideally working towards the same goals and student outcomes. The second discussion question dealt with self censorship, and this is often a challenge that is overlooked. Even librarians who are staunchly and vocally against censoring library materials can sometimes censor themselves or create restrictive library policies, sometimes without even knowing it, that censor collections for certain users. So the article that I found was called "They're So Stinkin' Popular, How Could You Say No? Graphic Novel Collection Development and School Librarian Self-Censorship." And in this research article, the authors did a survey of 20 elementary and middle school librarians. Many of them admitted to or acknowledged practicing some form of self-censorship with regard to graphic novels. And the authors questioned why specifically graphic novels, and they found that according to the ALA, most frequently challenged books are books for young people. And according to the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, graphic novels and manga are challenged at a disproportionate rate. And they hypothesize, they suppose, that the reason for this is that graphic novels are more visceral than text. If you're dealing with sexual content or violence, when you see that in a graphic, it hits you a lot harder than reading about it in a text. And so these librarians had a couple different methods for this self censorship. And again, some of it was acknowledged and some of it was kind of done subconsciously. So some librarians would avoid purchasing certain books. Some librarians would put age restrictions in their shelving, so certain grade levels could browse certain shelves or in their checkout policies. And one librarian even would hold certain books behind the counter and not let students check them out unless she felt that the students were mature enough for that. So obviously this is a problem because it restricts the rights of our students. And we as librarians, what I think is most important is that we have to remember that this is often something that happens without really thinking about it intentionally. And so we have to consistently be evaluating our selection policy and our collection evaluation policy to make sure that we have, again, books for all stakeholders. And finally, in the article that we read about good books and books kids like, what I really liked about the article was this quote: "The definition of quality and the definition of true appeal are pretty much the same. In other words, good books are simply books kids like." And so, again, in the context of collection policies and self censorship, this means that we have to make sure that we are choosing books for all stakeholders. So, even if the topics or themes are not ones that we as adults would be drawn to, we need to bring in books that we know kids might like. In my opinion, books that are not considered quality literature can still be what I'm going to call gateway books that get students invested in reading. Thanks for listening to my discussion opinions, and thanks to Slides Carnival for the template.